Jake Morrison sat in the cold metal chair and watched the alien leaders talk among themselves in their strange clicking language. The conference room on Concordia Prime Station felt more like a prison than a place for peace talks. For 3 months, he had been coming to this same room every day, listening to the same demands from the Galactic Coalition. Every day the demands got worse, and every day Jake had to smile and nod like humanity, had no choice but to accept whatever these creatures wanted. The largest alien at the table was Zarthek, who belonged to a species that looked like giant lizards with too many teeth. His scales were dark green, and his eyes were yellow like a snake. When he spoke, his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. Next to him sat 3 other alien representatives from different worlds. There was Velter, who had blue skin and tentacles. Instead of arms, Crix, who looked like a walking insect with 4 arms, and Nephra, whose people were tall and thin with gray skin and black eyes that never seemed to blink. Jake had been Earth's top diplomat for 15 years. He had settled trade disputes and prevented wars between human colonies. But nothing in his training had prepared him for dealing with creatures who saw humans as nothing more than weak children who needed to be controlled. Lisa Grant sat next to him, taking notes on her datapad. She was officially his military attaché, but Jake knew she was really there to report everything back to Earth's defense forces. Her face showed no emotion, but Jake could see the anger in her eyes every time. The aliens made another ridiculous demand. Zarthek finished talking to his companions and turned his yellow eyes toward Jake. His mouth opened to show rows of sharp teeth in what Jake had learned was supposed to be a smile, but looked more like a threat. "Human Morrison, we have decided on our final terms for peace between our species and yours," he said in his grinding voice. "Your people will surrender control of 60% of your colony worlds to the Coalition. You will reduce your military fleet to no more than 50 ships for defense only. You will allow Coalition observers to oversee your government on Earth, to make sure you follow our rules." Jake had heard these demands before, but each time they added something new. "What else?" he asked, keeping his voice level, even though he wanted to stand up and walk out right then. Krix. The insect alien clicked his mandibles together before speaking. "Your species will pay tribute to the Coalition equal to 40% of your total economic output each year. You will also provide us with your military technology, including your ship designs and weapon systems." Nephra spoke next in her cold, emotionless voice. "Human children between the ages of 10 and 16 will be selected for cultural exchange programs on Coalition worlds. They will live among our people for no less than 5 years to learn proper behavior and respect for Coalition authority." Room went silent. Jake felt his heart start beating faster. They were talking about taking human children as hostages. Lisa stopped writing and looked up from her datapad. Her hand moved slightly toward the weapon at her side, but Jake gave her a small shake of his head. "Cultural exchange," Jake said slowly. "You mean you want to take our children away from their families?" Velter waved his tentacles in what Jake had learned meant the alien was amused. "Your young are wild and undisciplined like all humans. They need proper education about their place in the galaxy. 5 years among civilized species will teach them to be more cooperative." Zarthek leaned forward across the table. "You humans think you are special because you have spread to many worlds in a short time. But you are young and weak. Your ships are slow, and your weapons are primitive. Your people fight among themselves and cannot work together like the Coalition. Species can. You survived only because the galaxy ignored you until now." Jake had listened to insults about humanity for months, but something about the way Zarthek said the words made his blood run cold. These aliens really believed humans were nothing more than animals that needed to be tamed. They thought Earth's diplomatic approach meant humans were weak and afraid to fight. We have been patient with your delays and requests for more time, Nephra continued. But our patience has limits. You will accept these terms within 7 days, or the Coalition fleet will blockade your home system. No food shipments will reach Earth. No medical supplies will reach your colony worlds. Your people will learn what happens when primitive species refuse to accept guidance from their betters. Zarthik showed his teeth again. Perhaps when human children are crying from hunger, their parents will be more willing to see reason. Your species needs to learn its place in the galactic order. That was the moment Jake Morrison realized these talks had never been about peace. The Coalition had already decided that humanity would be conquered. These negotiations were just their way of making humans surrender without a fight. They thought they could threaten Earth's children, and humanity would give up everything. Jake stood up slowly and began gathering his papers. Lisa looked at him with surprise, but started packing her equipment as well. The alien representatives watched with what Jake could only describe as amusement. "Where are you going, Human Morrison?" Zarthik asked. "We have not finished discussing the terms." Jake straightened his jacket and looked directly into the alien's yellow eyes. "These negotiations are over. Humanity withdraws from all diplomatic relations with the Galactic Coalition. You have 72 hours to remove all alien personnel from human space." The silence in the room lasted for several seconds. Then Zarthik began making a sound that Jake realized was laughter. The other aliens joined in, each making their own species version of amused sounds. "You cannot be serious," Velter said, waving his tentacles. "Your people need this alliance. Without Coalition protection, other hostile species will destroy your colonies. Your primitive ships cannot defend against advanced weapons." Crix clicked his mandibles rapidly. This is clearly an emotional outburst. Humans are known for making poor decisions when they are upset. "You will return tomorrow and accept our generous terms." Jake picked up his briefcase and walked toward the door. Lisa followed close behind. Just before they reached the exit, Jake turned back to face the alien delegation. "You have 72 hours, he repeated. "After that, any Coalition ships or personnel found in human space will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly." Zarthik's laughter grew louder. "You will come crawling back within a week, begging us to restore these negotiations. Humans cannot survive without Coalition guidance. Your species is too weak and divided to stand alone against the galaxy." Jake and Lisa left the conference room and walked quickly down the corridor toward their transport ship. Neither of them spoke until they were safely inside their vessel, and the doors had sealed behind them. "Are we really doing this?" Lisa asked as she activated the ship's engines. "Are we actually going to war with 5 different alien species?" Jake sat down in the co-pilot seat and activated the secure communication system. "Get me Admiral Sullivan on Earth. Priority Alpha encryption." The screen flickered and showed the face of Admiral Kate Sullivan in her office at Earth Defense Command. She was a woman in her 50s with short gray hair and sharp blue eyes that missed nothing. "Jake, what's your status?" she asked immediately. "It's over, Kate. They want 60% of our colonies, most of our fleet, and they want to take human children as hostages. They think we're too weak and primitive to resist." Admiral Sullivan was quiet for a moment. "Are you sure there's no way to reach a reasonable agreement?" "They're not interested in agreement, Kate. They want submission. Complete submission. They've been planning this from the beginning." The Admiral nodded slowly. "Then we move to Phase 2. Get back to Earth as quickly as possible. And Jake." "Yes?" "Tell no one about our conversation. As far as anyone knows, we're still hoping for a peaceful solution." The communication ended, and Jake leaned back in his chair. Lisa was already plotting a course back to Earth at maximum speed. Through the viewport, he could see other ships from various Coalition species docked at the station. In 72 hours, Those ships would have to leave. Human space or be destroyed. Wondered if the aliens would actually believe humanity was serious about ending the negotiations. Probably not. They would assume it was a bluff designed to get better terms. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. Admiral Kate Sullivan walked through the underground corridors of Earth Defense Command deep beneath the Colorado Mountains. The facility had been built during the early days of human space exploration, when Earth's leaders first realized they might encounter hostile alien species. What those early planners could never have imagined was how useful their paranoia would prove to be. The elevator descended for 2 full minutes before reaching the classified levels, where humanity's most secret projects were housed. Kate's security clearance allowed her access to information that fewer than 50 people on Earth were permitted to know. As the doors opened, she was met by Dr. Ryan Brooks, who had been waiting for her. Arrival. Ryan was a thin man in his 40s, with messy brown hair and thick glasses. He looked like any other scientist, but his mind contained knowledge that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. For the past 8 years, he had been working on projects that officially did not exist. Admiral, the timeline has been moved up, Ryan said as they walked toward his laboratory. We received Jake's signal from Concordia Prime. The Coalition has made their final demands, and as expected they are completely unacceptable. Kate nodded. How much time do you need to activate all systems? Most of our projects are already operational. The quantum tunneling drives have been installed on 40% of our fleet. The adaptive AI systems are ready for deployment. The weapons packages can be distributed within 24 hours. They entered a vast chamber filled with equipment that looked nothing like the technology humanity was supposed to possess. Sleek devices hummed with energy, while holographic displays showed star charts and battle simulations. This was where Earth's real defense had been prepared. Show me the quantum drives first, Kate said. Ryan led her to a section where several engineers were working on devices that seemed to bend light around themselves. These allow our ships to appear anywhere within a 50 light-year radius without being detected by conventional sensors. The Coalition has nothing like this technology. Kate examined the drives carefully. How many ships can we outfit? Every major vessel in the fleet, Admiral. Cruisers, destroyers, even our fighter squadrons. The aliens will think they're fighting 50 ships when we actually have 500. In another section of the laboratory, Ryan showed Kate the adaptive AI systems. These computers learn enemy tactics in real time and develop counter-strategies faster than any organic mind can process. Every shot the aliens fire teaches our systems how to better defend against the next one. But it was the weapons section that truly impressed Kate. Ryan had developed projectile systems that could penetrate any known shielding technology. Energy weapons that could disrupt alien electronics from vast distances. And most disturbing of all, biological agents designed to target specific alien species without harming humans or other forms of life. Ryan, this is incredible, Kate said. How long have we been developing this technology? Since first contact with the Galactic Coalition Admiral. Our government decided that humanity needed insurance in case diplomacy failed. Every peaceful exchange with alien species was also an intelligence-gathering operation. Kate understood immediately. While the aliens thought humans were primitive, and weak Earth scientists had been studying every aspect of Coalition technology, biology, and psychology. Every cultural exchange had been an opportunity to learn alien weaknesses. Every trade agreement had provided access to alien systems and data. The communication system in the laboratory activated, and Commander Amy Parker's voice came through the speakers. Admiral Sullivan, we have completed evacuation of non-essential personnel from the border colonies. All civilians have been moved to secure locations. What about our intelligence assets, Amy? Kate asked. All monitoring devices have been placed in Coalition space as planned. We now have real-time surveillance of their fleet movements, communications, and command structures. They have no idea we've been watching them for years. Amy Parker was humanity's top special operations commander. While the aliens saw her people as simple military attaches, they had actually been conducting the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history. Every human who had visited alien worlds had memorized strategic information. Every diplomat had been trained to identify military installations and defense systems. Kate walked to the main display screen, which showed the current positions of all coalition fleets. There were over 3,000 alien ships spread across dozens of star systems. By simple numbers, the coalition had a massive advantage over humanity's 800 vessels. They think this will be easy, Kate said to Ryan. Their intelligence reports show that humans are peaceful traders who avoid conflict. They have no idea what we're actually capable of. Ryan pulled up another display showing human fleet positions. Our ships are already moving into attack formations, Admiral. The aliens interpret this as retreat because our vessels are pulling back from their territory. They don't realize we're preparing to strike at targets they don't even know we've identified. Kate activated the secure communication system and contacted General Paul Martinez at Earth Defense Force Headquarters. Paul was responsible for coordinating ground operations and had been preparing for this day for years. Paul, what's the status of our defensive positions? Kate asked. All major colonies are protected by hidden weapon systems, Admiral. The aliens think our defenses are limited to a few orbital platforms. They have no idea we've been building underground installations for the past decade. What about offensive capabilities? Every world the coalition considers secure has been infiltrated by our reconnaissance teams. We have detailed maps of their military installations, government centers, and population hubs. When the shooting starts, we'll hit them where they least expect it. Kate ended the communication and turned back to Ryan. How long until Jake returns? From Concordia Prime, his ship should arrive within 18 hours, Admiral. The coalition representatives are probably still laughing about humanity's withdrawal from negotiations. Kate smiled coldly. Let them laugh. In 72 hours, they'll discover that human diplomacy was never a sign of weakness. It was strategic patience. The laboratory's main screen changed to show intercepted coalition communications. Alien voices could be heard, discussing the collapsed negotiations with obvious amusement. Zarthak's grinding voice was clearly audible as he told other coalition leaders that humans would surrender within days once their ships appeared in Earth's system. They're already moving their fleets toward human space, Ryan observed. Intelligence suggests they plan to blockade Earth and the major colonies simultaneously. Perfect, Kate said. That means their ships will be exactly where we want them when we spring the trap. Kate left the laboratory and took another elevator to the surface levels, where normal military operations were conducted. Here everything appeared routine, as if Earth's forces were simply responding to a diplomatic crisis. Officers moved calmly through corridors, while technicians maintained equipment. No one showed signs of panic or preparation for war. This, too, was part of the plan. The coalition had agents monitoring human activities, and those agents needed to see exactly what the aliens expected. Humans appearing worried, but not truly preparing for conflict. A species that hoped diplomacy could still succeed, but lacked the will or ability to fight a real war. Kate reached her office where Jake Morrison was waiting via holographic communication from his ship. His face showed the strain of months dealing with alien arrogance, but his eyes held something the coalition would never expect to see in a human diplomat. Cold determination. Kate, they really believe we're helpless, Jake said. Zarthak actually laughed when I told him to remove coalition personnel from human space. He thinks we'll be begging for new negotiations within a week. Good, Kate replied. The more confident they are, the more complete their surprise will be. What's your assessment of their psychological state? Overconfident to the point of stupidity. Admiral. They've convinced themselves that humans are naturally submissive because we prefer negotiation to immediate violence. They interpret our patience as fear and our diplomacy as weakness. Kate activated her secure terminal and began reviewing the final preparations. In less than 72 hours, the Coalition would learn that human beings were capable of incredible patience when working toward a goal. They could smile and nod through months of insults while secretly preparing for total war. Jake, when you reach Earth, I want you to meet with President Hayes. She needs to authorize the final phase of our preparations. What? About the Coalition fleets that are already moving toward our territory. Kate's smile was not pleasant. They're moving exactly where we want them, Jake. Every ship that enters human space is one less ship defending their home worlds. By the time they realize their mistake, it will be far too late. The communication ended, and Kate returned to watching the tactical displays. Coalition fleets were indeed moving confidently toward human territory, expecting to find a weak species ready to surrender. Instead, they would encounter an enemy that had spent years studying their weaknesses and developing weapons specifically designed to exploit those weaknesses. Kate thought about the years of careful planning that had led to this moment. Captain Nick Davis stood on the bridge of the stealth ship Vengeance and watched the Coalition fleet approach through space that they believed was empty. The alien ships moved in perfect formation, showing the discipline and coordination that had made the Coalition the dominant power in this region of the galaxy. What they did not know was that 40 human vessels surrounded them, completely invisible to their sensors. The Vengeance was one of humanity's most advanced ships, equipped with quantum tunneling drives and adaptive camouflage systems that made it impossible to detect. Nick had been commanding stealth operations for 12 years, but nothing had prepared him for a mission of this magnitude. In the next few hours, his small fleet would begin a war that would determine whether humanity remained free or became slaves to alien masters. Captain, we're receiving final attack orders from Earth Defense Command, reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the communications station. Sarah was more than just a communications officer, though. She was one of humanity's best fighter pilots and would soon be leading squadrons of fighters equipped with technology the Coalition had never encountered. Nick activated the ship's tactical display, which showed the positions of all Coalition vessels in the system. There were over 400 alien ships, including massive battlecruisers that could destroy planets and carrier vessels filled with thousands of fighters. By conventional military thinking, this Coalition fleet should easily defeat any human force. Sarah signaled all stealth ships to prepare for synchronized attack, Nick ordered. Target priority is command vessels and communications arrays. We need to blind them before they can coordinate a response. The bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. These men and women had trained for years, knowing that someday they might need to fight for humanity's survival. Now that day had arrived, and they showed no fear, only professional determination to complete their mission. Through the view screen, Nick could see the lead Coalition ship, a massive vessel commanded by Admiral Velkoff of the reptilian species. Intelligence reports indicated that Velkoff was considered one of the Coalition's best military commanders and had never lost a battle. Today would be different. All ships report ready, Captain, Sarah announced. Fighter squadrons are prepared to launch on your command. Nick took a deep breath. Once he gave the attack order, there would be no turning back. Humanity would be committed to total war against 5 alien species with superior numbers and advanced technology. But humans had advantages the Coalition could not understand. Attack, Nick said quietly. The space around the Coalition fleet suddenly erupted with weapons fire as 40 human ships decloaked simultaneously. The aliens had no warning. As plasma beams and quantum torpedoes struck their command vessels with devastating accuracy. In the first 30 seconds of combat, the Coalition lost 6 major ships and their entire communication network. The alien formation broke apart as individual captains tried to respond to an attack they could not understand. Their sensors showed human ships appearing from impossible angles, while their own vessels suffered damage from weapons that should not have been able to penetrate their shields. Sarah launched her fighter squadrons from the Vengeance and 12 other carriers. 200 human fighters swarmed into the battle space, moving with coordination that seemed impossible. Each fighter was equipped with adaptive AI, systems that learned alien tactics and adjusted human responses in real time. The Coalition fighters that rose to meet them found themselves facing an enemy that anticipated their every move. Human pilots who had trained in Earth's harsh environments and dangerous weather patterns proved far more adaptable than aliens who relied on superior technology and overwhelming numbers. "Captain, the Coalition fleet is trying to retreat," reported the tactical officer. "Their command structure has been completely disrupted." Nick smiled grimly. "Don't let them leave. This is just the beginning. Across human space, similar battles were erupting as stealth fleets struck Coalition forces with precision that defied explanation. On the planet New Boston, Colonel Tony Wallace received orders to begin ground operations against alien facilities that the Coalition thought were secret. Tony had been studying alien military installations for years through intelligence gathered during cultural exchanges and trade missions. Every human who had visited Coalition worlds had memorized strategic information while appearing to be nothing more than curious tourists or peaceful diplomats. All units moved to attack positions. Tony ordered through his communication system, "Remember, these aliens think we're primitive and weak. Let's show them what humans are really capable of." Tony's forces moved through terrain that should have been impossible to navigate. But humans had evolved on a world with extreme weather, dangerous predators, and hostile environments. What seemed difficult to pampered alien species was merely challenging to humans, who had conquered their own planet through determination and adaptability. The first alien base fell within minutes as human soldiers struck from directions the defenders had not anticipated. Coalition forces had prepared for conventional assault, but found themselves facing enemies who used tactics no civilized species would consider. Humans crawled through ventilation systems, emerged from underground tunnels, and attacked during weather conditions that grounded alien aircraft back in space. Sarah led her fighter squadrons against Coalition vessels that were trying to escape to hyperspace. The alien ships were faster and more heavily armed, but human pilots had been trained to think creatively and take risks that computer calculations said were impossible. "Blue Squadron, follow my lead," Sarah transmitted to her pilots. "We are going to thread the needle between those 2 battlecruisers and take out their engine systems." Her fighters dove toward the massive alien ships, while enemy weapons filled space with deadly energy beams. Any reasonable military analysis would have concluded that the human fighters had no chance of survival. But Sarah and her pilots were not reasonable by alien standards. They were humans who had learned to fly in Earth's chaotic weather patterns and survive in combat situations that would terrify other species. The fighters slipped between the Coalition battle cruisers and delivered precision strikes that disabled their propulsion systems. Without the ability to maneuver the massive alien ships became easy targets for Nick's stealth vessels. "Excellent work, Sarah," Nick transmitted. "Reform your squadrons and prepare for the next wave." The battle in this system was nearly over, but reports from other fronts showed that similar victories were occurring throughout human space. Coalition fleets that had expected easy conquest found themselves fighting an enemy that knew their weaknesses and had prepared specifically to exploit them. Admiral Kate Sullivan monitored the overall situation from Earth Defense Command. Display screens showed tactical information from dozens of battle zones, while communication channels carried reports of human victories across multiple star systems. Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from several coalition commanders, reported a communications officer. They're requesting immediate ceasefire and return to negotiations. Kate's expression remained cold. Ignore all surrender requests. Continue the attack according to plan. The officer looked surprised. Ma'am, some of these commanders are offering to withdraw completely from human space. They had their chance for peace, Kate said firmly. They chose war instead. Now they'll have war until we decide it's finished. Dr. Ryan Brooks entered the command center carrying data tablets with the latest intelligence reports. Admiral, the psychological impact is exceeding our projections. Coalition morale is collapsing. As their forces realize they've been fighting an enemy they completely misunderstood. Kate studied the reports with satisfaction. What about their home worlds? Our deep penetration teams are in position. Colonel Wallace's ground forces have taken control of 3 major coalition installations and are advancing on civilian population centers. The aliens are beginning to understand that we know everything about their society and military capabilities. The true scope of humanity's preparation was becoming clear. For years, while the coalition had dismissed humans as primitive and harmless Earth's intelligence services, had been conducting the most sophisticated reconnaissance operation in galactic history. Every cultural exchange had provided information about alien psychology. Every trade mission had mapped military installations. Every diplomatic meeting had revealed strategic weaknesses. Now all that patient intelligence gathering was paying devastating dividends. Human forces struck at exactly the right targets to cause maximum disruption. They exploited psychological weaknesses that the aliens did not even know they possessed. Most importantly, they demonstrated a level of coordination and strategic thinking that shattered coalition assumptions about human capabilities. Admiral, we're receiving reports that several coalition species are attempting to negotiate separate peace agreements, Ryan continued. The unity of their alliance is beginning to fracture. Perfect, Kate replied. That was always part of the plan. Once they realize we understand their individual weaknesses better than they understand them themselves, their cooperation will collapse. The display screens showed human forces pressing their advantage across every front. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood before the massive tactical display in Earth defense. Command and watched as human forces completed their invasion of the Korthik home system. What had begun 3 weeks ago as a coalition attempt to subjugate humanity had become a complete reversal of galactic power. Coalition fleets were destroyed or fleeing, while human ships pressed deeper into alien territory with each passing day. Commander Amy Parker's voice came through the communication system from deep inside coalition space. Admiral, we have successfully infiltrated the Veltari capital world. Government installations are under our control and civilian population centers are secured. Resistance has been minimal. Kate nodded with satisfaction. Amy's special operations teams had proven even more effective than anticipated, while the aliens had expected human forces to defend their own territory. They had never imagined that humans would launch immediate counter-invasions of coalition worlds. What about psychological operations, Amy? Kate asked. Proceeding beyond all expectations, Admiral. The aliens are completely demoralized. They're beginning to understand that every cultural exchange and diplomatic meeting for the past 8 years was actually intelligence gathering. They realize we know more about their societies and weaknesses than they know about ours. This was perhaps the most devastating aspect of humanity's assault. The coalition species had always prided themselves on their advanced intelligence capabilities and sophisticated understanding of alien psychology. Now they discovered that primitive humans had been studying them with methodical precision, while appearing to be nothing more than eager students of galactic culture. Dr. Ryan Brooks entered the command center carrying the latest reports from Diev. The weapons development teams. Admiral, the nanoscale weapons are performing perfectly. Coalition technology is being systematically disabled across multiple star systems. Their ships can't fight, and their ground installations can't coordinate. Defensive operations. Kate examined the technical data with cold satisfaction. While the aliens had focused on developing bigger weapons and stronger shields, humanity had taken a different approach. Human nanoscale technology could infiltrate any alien system and disable it from the inside. Coalition vessels found their own computers turning against them, while defensive systems shut down at critical moments. What about the biological agents Ryan deployed on schedule, Admiral? We're targeting specific alien species with compounds that cause temporary paralysis and disorientation without permanent harm. The psychological impact is enormous because they realize we could have used lethal agents instead. This too was part of humanity's psychological warfare strategy. By demonstrating that they possessed weapons capable of eliminating entire alien species, but choosing to use non-lethal alternatives, humans sent a clear message about their true capabilities. The coalition was being defeated by an enemy that was holding back. Jake Morrison appeared on the main communication screen from his new position as head of psychological operations. His diplomatic background made him uniquely qualified to understand how alien minds would respond to human tactics. Kate, we're receiving detailed intelligence about internal coalition communications, Jake reported. Several species are attempting to negotiate separate peace agreements. The Korthik leadership is already discussing complete surrender, while the Veltari are trying to blame other coalition members for provoking humanity. Perfect, Kate replied. How are they responding to our information broadcasts? Jake smiled grimly. They're terrified, Kate. We've been broadcasting specific details about their military installations, government leaders, and even personal information about individual alien commanders. They're realizing that human diplomats and cultural attaches were actually intelligence operatives who memorized everything they saw. The psychological impact was indeed devastating. Coalition leaders who had mocked human intelligence were discovering that humans had detailed files on their personal habits, family relationships, and psychological weaknesses. Every alien who had interacted with humans during cultural exchanges now understood they had been studied like laboratory specimens. Lieutenant Sarah Kim led her expanded fighter wing through the outer defenses of the Nefrak system, where one of the Coalition's largest military academies was located. Her original squadron had grown into a full wing of over 500 fighters as human industrial capacity shifted into full war production. All squadrons maintain formation, Sarah transmitted. Intelligence indicates the academy is heavily defended, but their weapon systems are designed for conventional attacks. They won't be able to track our adaptive flight patterns. The human fighters moved through space in formations that seemed chaotic to alien observers, but actually represented sophisticated tactical patterns developed through years of combat simulation. Each pilot's eye system was linked to every other fighter, creating a collective intelligence that could respond to threats faster than any individual alien. Commander could process information. The Academy's defensive systems opened fire with weapons that should have destroyed any attacking force. But human fighters twisted through the energy beams, using evasive maneuvers that violated every principle of conventional space combat. Pilots who had learned to fly in Earth's violent storms and unpredictable weather found alien defensive patterns, predictable and easily avoided. Within minutes, the Academy's defenses were overwhelmed, and Sarah's fighters were striking at targets deep inside the installation. The psychological impact on young alien cadets was enormous as they watched their supposedly impregnable academy being destroyed by the same primitive humans they had been taught to despise. Colonel Tony Wallace coordinated ground operations across 17 different coalition worlds simultaneously. His forces had grown from a single regiment to an entire army corps, as Earth committed more resources to offensive operations. What amazed coalition observers was not just the speed of human expansion, but the efficiency with which human forces adapted to alien environments. All units report successful penetration of target objectives, Tony announced during his daily briefing with Earth Defense Command. Coalition ground forces are offering minimal resistance. Most alien commanders are surrendering rather than face human assault teams in close combat. This too reflected careful human planning. Intelligence operations had revealed that most coalition species were physically weaker than humans and psychologically unprepared for the kind of aggressive close-quarters combat that human soldiers specialized in. Aliens who had evolved on peaceful worlds with stable climates found themselves unable to match the adaptability of humans who had survived ice ages and natural disasters. Kate activated the strategic overview display, which showed the current military situation across coalition space. In just 3 weeks, human forces had captured or destroyed over 70% of coalition military assets, while suffering minimal casualties themselves. More importantly, the political structure of the coalition was collapsing as member species blamed each other for the disaster. "Admiral, we're receiving a priority communication from the Coalition High Command," reported a communications officer. "They're requesting immediate ceasefire and return to diplomatic negotiations." Kate's expression remained cold. "Who specifically is making this request?" "Zarthik himself, ma'am. The same alien leader who laughed when Ambassador Morrison withdrew from peace talks." Kate considered this information for several moments. Zarthak had been the most arrogant and dismissive of the coalition leaders. The fact that he was now begging for negotiations indicated just how completely the military situation had reversed. "Put him through," Kate ordered. The main display screen shifted to show Zarthik's reptilian features. The arrogant confidence that had characterized his previous communications was completely gone. His yellow eyes showed fear, and his voice had lost its grinding authority. "Admiral Sullivan," he began carefully, "the coalition leadership recognizes that serious mistakes were made in our previous negotiations with humanity. We are prepared to offer significantly improved terms for a peaceful resolution to this conflict." Kate allowed several seconds of silence before responding. "What kind of improved terms?" "Complete withdrawal of all coalition forces from human space. Recognition of human sovereignty over all current human colonies. Establishment of humanity as an equal partner in galactic affairs rather than a subordinate species." Kate's smile was not pleasant. "3 weeks ago, you demanded 60% of our colonies and wanted to take human children as hostages. Now you're offering us equality. What changed your perspective?" Zarthik's scales seemed to darken. "With shame. We underestimated human capabilities, Admiral. We made assumptions based on incomplete information. The coalition leadership now recognizes that humanity deserves respect as a major galactic power." "You underestimated us," Kate repeated slowly. "Is that what you call threatening our children and demanding our surrender?" "Admiral, we are prepared to pay substantial reparations for any damages caused by this misunderstanding," Zarthik continued desperately. "The coalition can offer advanced technology, valuable resources, even territorial concessions if humanity will agree to end hostilities." Kate cut the communication without responding and turned to address her staff. "Continue all offensive operations according to plan." Jake Morrison walked through the same corridors of Concordia Prime Station where 3 months earlier he had endured the Coalition's arrogant demands and threats against human children. Today, the station served a very different purpose as the site where defeated alien leaders would formally surrender to human authority. The conference room that had witnessed humanity's diplomatic humiliation would now host the complete reversal of galactic power. The war had lasted exactly 47 days from the moment Jake had withdrawn from negotiations to the final collapse of coalition resistance. In that time, human forces had not merely defended their territory, but had conquered 17 alien star systems and occupied the home worlds of all 5 coalition species. What the aliens had intended as a quick subjugation of primitive humans had become their own total defeat. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood beside Jake as they reviewed the surrender documents that would reshape galactic civilization. The terms were harsh, but reflected the reality that humanity now held absolute military superiority over every species that had threatened them. "Are you ready for this, Jake?" Kate asked. "Some of these aliens are the same ones who laughed when you tried to protect our children." Jake's expression remained calm, but his eyes held the cold determination that had carried humanity through the war. "I've been ready for this moment since Zarthik threatened to starve human families and take our kids as hostages. Today they learn what happens when someone pushes us too far." The doors to the conference room opened, and the defeated coalition leaders entered under heavy guard. Their appearance shocked Jake, even though he had been prepared by intelligence reports. Zarthik's scales had lost their dark green color and turned a sickly gray. His yellow eyes no longer held arrogance, but showed the broken spirit of a leader whose people had been completely conquered. Velter's blue skin looked pale, and his tentacles hung limply at his sides. Crix kept his insect head down and refused to make eye contact, while Nephrai's emotionless gray features somehow managed to convey total despair. These were the same aliens who had mocked human weakness and dismissed humanity as a primitive species fit only for slavery. Now they shuffled into the room like defeated prisoners, which in fact they were. President Linda Hayes appeared via holographic projection from Earth. As humanity's elected leader, she would have the final word on the terms offered to the coalition species. Her presence reminded everyone that this was not merely a military victory, but the triumph of human civilization over those who had threatened to destroy it. Representatives of the former Galactic Coalition, President Hayes began formally. "You are here because your governments chose war over peace and aggression over diplomacy. The consequences of that choice are now evident to the entire galaxy." Zarthik attempted to speak, but Jake raised his hand for silence. "You had your chance to talk 3 months ago. Today you listen." Jake activated the holographic display that showed the current military situation across what had once been Coalition space. Human fleets controlled every major star system, while human ground forces occupied all significant alien population centers. The species that had once dominated this region of the galaxy were now completely at humanity's mercy. "The Galactic Coalition is hereby dissolved," Jake announced. "All military forces belonging to member species are disbanded permanently. All weapons of mass destruction are surrendered to human authority. All space-capable vessels are transferred to human command or destroyed at our discretion." The aliens listened in stunned silence as Jake continued reading the surrender terms. Their worlds would remain under human occupation indefinitely. Their governments would be replaced by human administrators. Their populations would be relocated as deemed necessary for security purposes. But perhaps most humiliating of all, their method, children would indeed be separated from their families for educational purposes, exactly as they had demanded be done to human children. Alien youth would be raised in human institutions, where they would learn proper respect for the species their parents had foolishly threatened. "This is impossible," Velter finally whispered. "You cannot govern our worlds. You do not understand our cultures or our needs." Kate Sullivan stepped forward with a cold smile. "We understand your cultures perfectly. We studied them for 8 years while your people assumed we were primitive and harmless. We know your psychological weaknesses, your social structures, and your deepest fears. We probably understand your species better than you understand yourselves." This was perhaps the most devastating revelation for the defeated aliens. Every cultural exchange, every diplomatic meeting, Every seemingly innocent interaction with humans had been part of a massive intelligence operation. While they had dismissed humans as eager students of galactic civilization, Earth's agents had been methodically cataloging everything they observed. Dr. Ryan Brooks entered the conference room carrying data tablets containing detailed psychological profiles of each alien species. We know that Korthic individuals become completely submissive when separated from their tribal structures. We know that Valtari cannot function without constant social approval from their peers. We know that Nephrak psychology breaks down when exposed to unpredictable environmental changes. The aliens stared at the human scientist with growing horror, as they realized how completely they had been studied and analyzed. Every weakness had been identified and would now be exploited to ensure their permanent subjugation. Commander, Amy Parker's voice came through the communication system from the ice-occupied Korthic whole world. President Hayes, the relocation programs are proceeding on schedule. Alien populations are being transferred to designated areas where they can be properly supervised. Resistance has been minimal. President Hayes nodded approvingly. What about industrial capacity, Amy? All major manufacturing facilities are now under human control, ma'am. We're converting alien production lines to serve human needs. The former coalition species will work to rebuild what their war destroyed. Jake watched the alien leaders absorb this information with satisfaction. They were beginning to understand that their defeat was not temporary. Humanity had no intention of eventually withdrawing from their worlds or restoring their independence. This was permanent conquest designed to ensure that no alien species would ever again threaten human children. You wanted to know what humans were capable of when pushed too far, Jake said directly to Zarthik. Now you know. We tried diplomacy first, but war is what we excel at. Zarthik's voice was barely audible when he finally spoke. We made a mistake. We misunderstood human nature. If we had known your true capabilities, we would never have made those demands. You're right, Jake replied. You made a mistake. You saw our preference for peace as weakness and our diplomacy as fear. You thought cooperation was submission and patience was cowardice. Most importantly, you threatened our children and expected us to surrender rather than fight. President Hayes addressed the defeated aliens directly. Your species will survive, but not as independent civilizations. You will exist as subjects of human authority, learning to serve the species you tried to enslave. Your children will grow up understanding that humanity tried to offer you partnership, but you chose to be enemies instead. Kate activated another display, showing human colonies expanding throughout former coalition space. Millions of humans were already settling on alien worlds, while the original inhabitants were moved to areas where they could be closely monitored. Within a generation, human culture would dominate these systems, while alien traditions would be preserved only as historical curiosities. This is the new reality, Kate announced. Humanity is now the dominant power in this region of the galaxy. Other species that might consider threatening us in the future should study what happened to the coalition carefully. The formal surrender ceremony concluded with the alien leaders signing documents that transferred all authority over their worlds to human administrators. Their signatures represented the complete reversal of galactic power and the establishment of human hegemony over former enemies. As the defeated aliens were led away under guard, Jake reflected on how completely the situation had changed. 3 months ago, he had sat in this same room, listening to threats against human families, while alien leaders laughed at human weakness. Today, those same aliens were broken prisoners, whose peoples would spend generations serving the species they had underestimated. President Hayes ended her holographic transmission with final words that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. Let it be known that humanity offered peace and partnership to the coalition species. They chose war instead. The consequences of that choice will serve as a permanent reminder that humans tried diplomacy first, but when forced to fight, we do not stop until victory is complete. The conference room fell silent as Jake and Kate prepared to leave. Outside the station, human ships patrolled space that had once belonged to alien empires. In the distance, transport vessels carried human colonists to worlds that would become the foundation of humanity's expanded civilization. The galaxy had learned what happened when someone threatened human children and mistook human patience for weakness. The lesson would not be forgotten for many generations to come.